What's up, guys? So today I want to be talking about a video that I saw from Patrick Bet David. His channel is Valuetainment on YouTube. He did a video talking about the discussion around the raising of the minimum wage. This was back in mid-February, but it's still a pretty relevant topic because we're still discussing this. And it's him pretty much fear-mongering about the minimum wage and why he thinks that it's a terrible idea to raise it. And since I'd done a pretty good video, I thought, on at least well-researched, on minimum wage myths that are pretty common, I thought that it would be cool to talk about his claims and try to examine how accurate they are and how much is, just there to fearmonger on people. So let's look at this video. I'm going to be running this at like 1.5 times speed or so. So let's see how that goes. But that way it doesn't take, too much time to get to the basic points that he's making.
Minimum wage, $15 an hour. Looks like they're forcing it through with the $1.9 trillion stimulus, and you can't vote for it. I can't vote for it. Just the benefit of a political party winning presidency, Senate, and House, and the other side has to pay a price. But I just want to give you a couple stats here.
So first of all, co-parter, my dude. Okay, that's literally how our electoral system works in the United States. Yeah, I agree that it's not a perfect system, but you don't get to, just say, boo-hoo, I don't like the fact that the system is that way. Come on, my dude. Don't be this way. Don't be this way.
And I'll make my case to small business owners and individuals. Do you know what's the highest country that pays the most minimum wage in the world? Australia. You know what it is?
And by the way, the echo is on his end, just so we're clear.
$12.60. You know Australia is known to be a socialist country? You know the next one is France at $12.10, then Germany $11.80, then Netherlands $11, UK, Canada, South Korea, Japan, then it's US. You know what Russia's minimum wage is?
Okay. Just so we're clear, claiming that Australia is a socialist country and that is a common knowledge statement is very silly. Generally speaking, having watched some of Patrick Bet David's videos before, he's one of those people that simply equates and incorrectly equates, government control equals socialism of an economy. And so based on his own metrics, which, let's look at, I don't know, public sector percentage of employment, i.e. how many jobs are government jobs within an economy. So controlled by the government. Australia is at 18% on that. The US is at 14%, right? So not that big of a difference, right? And then to have a real perspective, like China is around 70%, right? So, dude, you're already starting off just saying something that's completely politically and economically illiterate to say, dude. Come on.
$2.40. You know what China's minimum wage is? You do not want to know China's minimum wage. By the way, Norway doesn't have a minimum wage. There's a lot of countries that don't have a minimum wage. They just trust the fact that the business owner is going to take care of the employee, and they trust the fact that the employee is going to work so hard to create high value in the marketplace that they're paying more. They don't say.
Yeah, so first of all, comparing minimum wage in US dollars between countries with very different cost of living and, standards is very ignorant. Like comparing, say, I don't know, the minimum wage in US dollars between the United States and, Cuba or, any country that has a lower cost of living. Let's say, hell, Mississippi versus California. It doesn't make sense. You're not making any sense here, dude. Like, it's not a comparison. It tells us functionally nothing about what that person is able to afford and to live with in that country at that wage. Also, when he says here that these other countries don't have minimum wages, he's not really telling the whole truth, especially when he's saying that they just trust businesses. That's not true at all. The countries he's naming specifically, these EU countries, they do have high average minimum wages. That is correct. However, they do have minimum wages. They just happen to be in each sector of the economy, and that is set by having really high unionization rates and collective bargaining in order to make sure their employers pay them, not, as he said, trusting the business owners to pay them. That's not how this works. And so that's why when you're comparing, say, a country like Denmark that has, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, that all have 50% or more unionized employees, and you're looking at like Denmark is like 67%, so is Sweden, when you're comparing those to the United States, who only has 10% of unionization rates, then you have to kind of acknowledge, well, I don't know, why is it that they're able to have that, not be in law, right? So he's lying by omission here, pretty obviously. Let's continue.
The government needs to come and do what they do. So if a lot of these countries in the top 5 minimum wage are higher than us, and we're about to be number one at $15, they're socialists. And now you beat all the countries around the world.
Again, those countries are not socialist. Even Bernie Sanders, who I, have liked, he gets this wrong as well. Denmark, Norway, Scandinavian countries are not socialist, right? This is, again, just some really ignorant language. They are social democracies, but social democracies are still capitalist in nature. They just have better social safety nets than a less, social safety net country, right? Like the United States. So again, calling them socialists, they're not, dude. Okay. You're just trying to use a boogeyman term and play up on people's Cold War fears. And which is pretty telling that only other countries outside of those Scandinavian countries that he uses to make a comparison other than Australia. And that was, of course, because of he's looking just at the numbers. The only ones he randomly chose were Russia and China. Dude, come on.
In minimum wage, and they're socialists. What does that make America? I don't know, but you put the two together, it is what it is. So what does the minimum wage really do? And then how does this apply to motivation money?
Also, I want to point out that socialists don't advocate for minimum wage as a fix to the problems generally, right? Most socialists would argue that, minimum wage is just a band-aid to make up for how little work, power workers have, specifically in the US, to make sure that they have a set standard of living so that they can survive in the given system. However, the need for a minimum wage and the need for those social safety nets is because we have to rely in our economy on people being able to spend money within the market and stimulate the economy in order to have their basic needs met. So yeah, a fix here would be maybe having better social safety nets and having higher unionization rates. But if you're not advocating for that, you're just being pretty dishonest here. Now let's get to his actual argument now that he's, showed how politically illiterate he is.
Let me get right into it. So number one, Adam and I are sitting here talking and says, Pat, I said, I feel so bad for these small business owners. He says, Pat, why do you feel so bad for a small business owner? I don't feel bad for a small business owner. He said, they know what they were doing when they got into business. That's not like it's anyone's fault. They knew they were going into business. So if they go out of business because of minimum wage, that's their fault. I said, great point. Let me make my case on why I disagree with you. He says, what is it? I said, see if you and I were to get into a fight. And it's a big fight. It's a fight we're going to do on YouTube. Adam Sosnick against Patrick Bet-David, okay?
And so I'm going to cut through this because I don't want to waste y'all's time. But basically, he's suggesting that he's equating this to they signed up for a kickboxing fight and then changed the rules at the last minute to only boxing, and this would handicap the person that had an advantage at, say, kicking. And he's using this to say that, well, this small business owner got into the business, right, with the belief that here's what my minimum wage is, so here's the rules that I have to play by. And then by going in and changing the rules, you're essentially screwing over those business owners, and that's unfair. The problem with this argument is that, normally when people say like, what is the reason that we should put up with, whatever, capitalist use of resources, it's because why should they be rewarded? Like, i.e., why is it that, say, a CEO or the owner, founder of a business, why should the entrepreneur take the lion's share of the value, right? Why is it that they shouldn't pay workers higher? And usually the reason that people give is that that person took the risk, right, to start that business and the employee did not. Well, Pat, this is the risk. Like, this is literally the risk. So you don't get to say, I took risk and therefore I deserve to be rewarded, and then also say on the flip side that, well, the risk bit me in the ass and I don't really like that. Wah, wah. No, dance with the one that brought you, man. And then also, I want to point out that, when we're talking about this and we're talking about unionization, this massive variable that he's leaving out, unions have been declining in the United States for, decades, because of lobbying for right to work in states, and because of, union busting, like what we saw with Amazon fighting against unionization in their Birmingham facility. And so this is the thing. Again, he's ignoring this. And also, Pat's politics lean towards advocating against unionization. So he's causing the problem that he's complaining about. And I want to be very specific when we're talking about unions and people. If you're someone that's wondering, like, well, what's the point of a union? What does it actually do for me? Despite the fact that that unionization has been decreased in the United States, union employees in the U.S. still, on average, make about 20% more than non-union ones. It makes a big difference. So I just want to be clear about that. And then let's skip ahead.
Raise minimum wage to $15. 1.4 million people in America lose their job. 1.4 million people in America lose their jobs. And what does that mean if 1.4 million people lose their jobs? Here's what it means. Walmart, say I have a market. Patrick's Market. Across the street is Walmart.
So this as well is not true when he's saying that there's going to be X amount of job loss based on minimum wage. This is, again, I know I've said this before. Anytime someone is talking about macroeconomics and they are talking about one variable and saying this one variable will lead to X results, they are intentionally skewing, or they just don't know what they're talking about, because it's more complicated than that. And there is no consistent data that shows that minimum wage is going to have a discernible effect on employment. I'll have studies in the description showing that. And also, if you check out my other minimum wage video, there's a lot of discussion that I go in on that, because this is one of the common myths that people, spout.
The only product I beat Walmart in is milk. I sell milk for $3.49. Walmart sells it for $3.59. That's my way of getting 600 customers and families that come to me because we go to PBD's or Patrick's Market because his milk is 10 cents cheaper than Walmart. Then all of a sudden, they announce minimum wage is $15. Who do you think can afford to pay $15 an hour minimum wage, and who can't? Walmart can. I cannot. If I now have to pay $15 and I have to raise my price of my milk from $3.49 to $4.29, he can stay $3.59. How long until I go out of business? How long until my 600 customers who love me and say, Pat, I got to tell you, I love you. I love your jokes. You're funny. You're so good to us. And I find him go to Walmart, and I sit in front of Walmart, and I see all my customers going there.
The problem here is I'll have this study linked below too, but it's when you're making this ridiculous comparison saying that X amount goes up on labor cost, therefore there will be a appreciable amount that will go up, or similar amount that will go up on my sale, like on the product that I'm selling. It ignores the fact that there are a lot of other costs other than just labor costs that go into selling any product, right? You have whatever the shipping, the handling, the cost of goods initially, like the cost of raw goods. There's a lot of other costs that go into it, and it depends on the specific industry, but different industries have different percentages of labor costs. And, in his example, retail, it's actually pretty low of a percentage. So he's not even using a very good example. A better example would be something like, like a service-based job, like masseuse, something like or a massage therapist, something where you have a very little cost of, equipment outside of, the rent for the facility, of course. But yeah, this is just, again, he's intentionally simplifying to lie by omission. And yeah, then on top of that, what he's complaining about is not a function of minimum wage when he's talking about consolidation of capital into bigger firms versus smaller firms. That's just the nature of how it works if I'm someone who already has a lot more money to be able to spend, whether that's to pay employees because there's a higher minimum wage, to invest in new areas, to purchase a vast array of products, to sell at a loss, right? To weed out competition, which is what Walmart was very notorious for in the 90s, and Amazon during its first decade. Those all happen without regard to the minimum wage being raised. What he's complaining about is a problem with the way that capital consolidation works within a market economy. So the irony is that for someone who claims to hate socialism, he's complaining about an aspect of capitalism that, Lenin talks about in Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. So maybe he should read more.
How do you think I feel? How can I win them over? I can't win them over. I can't sell it for $30.49. I have to close business. You know who celebrates? Walmart. Walmart says, bam, thank you so much for raising minimum wage. We don't even have to put these guys out of business. You're doing it for us. You're so wonderful. All the politicians in DC. We love you, right? That's basic math. I can go an hour telling you.
Yeah, agreed. Again, read Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. What he's complaining about is market economies within capitalism. Dude doesn't even know he's a socialist.
Different, analogies, numbers, data for you to see, okay, that makes sense. Now, let's talk about the other side. You know, when was the last time I got paid minimum wage? I was 14 or 15 or 16 years old working for Haagen-Dazs, making ridiculous banana splits, okay, or sorbet in a sugar cone, or a waffle cone, or $11.25 an hour, or $3.75 an hour. It's probably what I was worth, okay? Then after working at Haagen-Dazs, I get a job at Bob's Big Boy, $5.15 an hour. I was like, man. And then I never even thought about minimum wage. All I thought about is how to increase my market value. Look,
and so there, what he was talking about that I skipped over is he was talking about how he worked at these different fast food places, and over time his wage went up a little bit by little. And then he's talking about that, okay, well, instead of worrying about minimum wage, we should be worried about how do I increase my market value. This is a ridiculously silly simplification. And ironically, for someone who tends to lean, not towards the Democrats, which I'm not saying are good, just so we're clear, but someone who is leaning away from that, this is functionally him saying learn to code, right? It's the same thing. That's not a social answer. Like, yes, it's true that if you increase your market value, i.e. you increase the skills that you have available, then that means that you are able to offer a better use value to an employer. However, if everybody learns, i.e. the same skill, that skill loses value. So you're not offering any societal-wide answer to what we should do to fix this problem. You're just, again, bringing up another Band-Aid. You're ignoring the fact that people need to be able to afford a basic way of life in order to be able to spend money and stimulate the economy, as well as live a life of, with dignity.
There's a place for unemployment benefits, 100%. There's a place for, some of these protection in case something happens to you. Of course, there's a place for all of that. But leaning on that and on the government, your parents, what do you think about when a 25-year-old is still living with his parents, or 30-year-old living with parents, and parents are taking care of him financially? What do you call that person? So what do you call a 30?
And so this guy is, of course, very, very heavy-handedly suggesting very boomer memes where he's talking, saying that basically, hey, if you live at home with your parents, you're a loser. But hey, we know that's not true, because that would suggest that, I don't know, maybe macroeconomic trends like the fact that wages have been stagnant for the last 3 decades, actually 4 at this point, despite cost of living going up, exponentially. That would say, he's saying that, it's your individual failing that is causing, I don't know, millennials to live at home more than the previous generations. That sounds like something that's a very rational, well-based economic view of the world. Dude, come on, okay? Here's the reality. Everybody has things that, your life comes at you at different stages at different times. It depends. Somebody who lives in, say, rural North Carolina, where I'm from, originally, is much less likely to need to live at home than somebody who grows up in Los Angeles County, which is where I live now, right? That's not because people in Los Angeles County are inherently lazier, more dependent. It's because it costs a lot more to live here. And it takes time to save up that money, especially if you're not getting paid wages that are keeping up with inflation. I.e., again, this man is literally circular logicking his way around minimum wage argument.
35-year-old that's relying on the government to raise the minimum wage for them. What's the difference between the name you gave for either or? What is it? Well, no, that's different, because no, there is no difference. It just means you're not increasing your value in the marketplace. Now remember, I'm not talking about disabilities. And I'm not talking about all that other stuff, although I'm also not talking about, everybody has mental issues and health issues. I'm not discounting that. I get it. I know what it is to be going through challenging times, but can we use that on every single person? I understand a small percentage of America, I understand a small percentage of, but that number keeps increasing every time.
These are two completely different things, right? He's conflating, disability, welfare, all these different social services with minimum wage. I don't know if you know this, Pat, but when people get paid disability, it's because they're unable to work and they need some amount of sustenance in order to live. When people are paid minimum wage, it's because they are performing a job, right, to contribute to the economy, and therefore they are paid at a rate where they are able to afford to live and help stimulate that economy. So what the hell are you talking about? But it lets you know that he's not talking about this from a rational, grounded perspective. He's talking about this from a very emotional perspective, where he's just, essentially judging people that he thinks are, leeches, for lack of a better term.
We're all under stress. I got 3 babies, one on the way, family, few businesses to run, people to support.
Also, I understand this man has basically 3 million subscribers on YouTube and has way more money than I do. But dude, don't ever buy all matching pajamas for your family. That is the most cringe shit ever.
Board to report to, my own health to take care of, my personal life, trying to please my family, trying to take care of them. Stress is there for all of us. Everybody has some sort of stress, some higher, some lower.
Yeah, everybody has stress. Elon Musk has stress based, I don't know, wondering what he's going to post on Twitter and whether or not the SEC is going to get involved. But the stress that Elon Musk or Patrick Bet-David or even myself feels, relatively speaking, to a person who is working a minimum wage job and is struggling to get by is very different and much more visceral because they have to be able to afford food, a roof over their head, I don't know, maybe some amount of entertainment to enjoy their lives. Yeah, they have to be able to afford that. I can, and I don't even make that much money. I just have a fairly decent job as an engineer. Patrick Bet-David makes way more than I do. Guess what? Being able to afford those basic things helps you be able to get higher on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to be able to worry about other stresses in life. Trying to equate the stresses you have of dealing with 3 kids to, I don't know, somebody who's working minimum wage and may also have a child just makes you look like a giant bitch.
But to rely on an institution, your parents, the government, to support you and rely on you increasing your wage, I don't know. I would much rather rely on my industrial, my effort, my...
And meanwhile, this guy's entire career is online. Like, you literally rely on the fact that the government invested into the internet and allows this to be able to exist. Like, dude, shut the hell up. Like, everyone lives off of society. This myth of the individual, the rugged individual by himself that did all this, is why it feeds into the narcissistic behavior that you see increasingly on social media, on, whether it's Keeping Up with the Kardashians or whatever other flaunt it in your face show. Dude, we're all a product of our environment. Like, get over yourself.
Desire to work to increase my value in the marketplace. When I go to sleep at night, I say, and I increase the market value, not if the government increases the minimum wage. So what is the right minimum wage number? If they can make 15, is it 25? Is it 35? Why don't we make it 50? Why don't we make $100 an hour for everybody? Where do we come up with that money?
Why not? Let's
what
go
happens to
Oprah
everything in the
on it.
market?
But here's the thing, actually, when he's talking about this and he's complaining like this about $15 minimum wage, I'll include this as well in the link in the description. But technically speaking, if you're looking at minimum wage and you want it just to keep up with inflation, you're looking at it being around $20 an hour, not not even 15. So like, this is kind of outdated anyway, and kind of a concession, and actually a little bit of, meeting in the middle, because people have been asking for $15 for over a decade at this point. So my dude, grow up.
Marketplace. Do gas prices go to $4, $5, $10, $20, $30? Do you want that to happen? You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden you're depleting your savings. So again, focus on increasing your market.
Gas prices are not directly correlated with minimum wage. They're pretty heavily correlated with oil futures, and oil futures have functionally nothing to do with minimum wage. This dude is just talking out of his ass.
Market value. And the next time somebody's trying to sell you on the concept of minimum wage, have a better argument, because we need more people to understand the basics of what happens if we raise the minimum wage the way we have and we make it highest in the world.
Now, I want to be clear that when he's saying understand the basics, one, the dude doesn't understand the basics. But when he's talking about minimum wage, dude, when you're saying like we've raised the minimum wage, the reality is that we haven't been raising the minimum wage. That's the issue. You dense, gormless bitch. Like, come on, dude.
We have the highest minimum wage in the world now. It's not something to be proud of when we're in debt, the most in the world. Those two don't go together. If you have the most debt in your family, do you go buy a Lexus or a Porsche or a Mercedes? No, you go pay off your debt.
This is also something there he's being very disingenuous, because the reality is that in the last 4 years under Republican leadership, which he was very pro Trump, which to each his own, because of the tax cuts that Trump did, we ran an even higher deficit than any other president. The dude doesn't actually care about the debt. He is recreationally being outraged when it's convenient to do so. Come on. Also, that's not how the economy works. The economy doesn't work like a household. And I'll do a video on this, but people that pretend to be deficit hawks, they conveniently only do so whenever the party that they don't like is in office, and otherwise don't really care. Minimum wage and the national debt have very little to do with each other. Again, this is just, silly. And overall, this is the premise of the video. Dude's coming out here, he's complaining, he's talking about minimum wage, and he's making all of these conflations, and these claims about what will happen and what does happen, and they just don't hold water. And this is why, again, whenever someone's talking about some macroeconomic trend, or effect, and they only talk about one variable, we need to be very specific in questioning that and trying to see where is that coming from, because it usually doesn't have much room, much of a standing. And this is no exception. So anyway, that's a pretty good video on this. But if you want to see my other one on minimum wage myths, check that out, because I have other discussions that are in the subtext of what he is talking about. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this clip, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any new content, where I'm always talking about finance, economics, and public policy from a working class perspective.